Okay, I'm going to go through 4 different examples of solving these one-step equations that have negative signs. So if we look at the one here on the left, when you're solving an equation, you want to first draw a line down where the equal sign is to signify the two sides of the equation. So remember, when you're solving these equations, you look at the variable and you say, what's keeping that variable from being by itself? So in this case, there's a plus 8. Then you ask yourself, well, what's the opposite of adding 8? To subtract 8, right? So you want to subtract 8 on both sides because plus 8 minus 8 cancels out. So on the left side, all you have is a C, and on the right side, you have negative 11 minus 8, which is negative 19. Now let's look at the one on the right. So again, you always start off and draw a line where the equal sign is to signify the two sides of the equation. You look at that variable and you say, what's happening to that variable? What's keeping it from being by itself? Right, we are subtracting 9. Then you say, well, what's the opposite of subtracting 9? Adding 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Because minus 9 plus 9 is 0, that cancels it out. So on the left side, I have a negative 11 plus 9, which is negative 2. And on the right side, those 9's canceled out, so you just have a P. And don't forget that equal sign is right there where your vertical line is. The equal sign always stays in the same spot. You don't want to lose that. So let's go over a couple that are multiplying and dividing. So first off, the one here on the left, you look at the variable and say, what's keeping that variable from being by itself? Right, this is z divided by negative 6. So this is still a division symbol. Don't get thrown off by that negative sign and think we're subtracting. This is z divided by negative 6. So there's two ways you can write how you solve undue division. So when you're undoing division, you do the opposite, which is to multiply. So you're always doing the opposite operation. The opposite of dividing is to multiply, but you're not changing the number. I'm not changing that number, negative 6, to the opposite of negative 6. I don't change it to a positive 6. So it's the opposite operation, which is to multiply, but the number stays the same. So you could write it out to the side like this. So negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. So on the left side, on the right side, I just have a z. And on the left side, I have negative 6 times negative 7, which is positive 42. So you could write it like that, or some people still like to write it up and down. So to undo dividing by negative 6, you can just say a multiplication dot, and just know that dividing by negative 6 and multiplying by negative 6 are opposites, and they cancel each other out. So I'll show you guys both ways when I go through examples. So on the right side, you just end up with a z, and again, on the left side, negative 7 times negative 6 would be a positive 42. And then the last one here on the right, again, make your vertical line to signify the two sides of the equation, and then look at that variable and say, what's keeping that from being by itself? Now, the biggest mistake I see people make with these is that they're tempted to say, oh, we're subtracting 6, so I'm going to add 6. But remember, when you have two numbers that are being multiplied, like 3 and x, you smush them together. This is saying 3 times x. Or this is saying negative 3 times x. So that's what's going on here. We have z, but it's not by itself because it's being multiplied by negative 6. So ask yourself, what's the opposite of multiplying by negative 6? Right, and that's dividing by negative 6. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing, but the number that you are dividing by stays as negative 6. because negative 6 divided by negative 6 cancels out. And then on the right side, what do you have? Yeah, it's negative 12. Okay, so if you have any other questions on these or want to go over some examples together, then please come to my Zoom session or send me an email and we can come up with a different time to meet.